Mic, check 1 2. It's the Y2K collector. And at this point, we're just making up prices. Why do I say that? I say that because when it comes to some of these more niche or rare indie games for the Nintendo Switch, what tends to happen is that once the physical releases for these games touch down and the original buyers start to get their copies, you immediately see copies then show up on eBay with prices ranging from at all ranges. Now today, in my mailbox, I got another pleasant surprise for a Switch game that I had ordered a while back, and this is for the copy of Tiny Thor. Now, Tiny Thor is an action platforming game that kind of mixes a lot of elements of other games. It feels in some cases like Mario, in some cases it feels like Donkey Kong. I would say Donkey Kong Country 2. There are certain parts of it that actually wind up feeling like Sonic. And then it has like this overall like Metroidvania style feel to it. Overall, the gameplay is really based on that hammer that you see there, which you're able to throw and kind of aim using like you get like a trajectory, basically an outline of where it kind of, the game kind of helps you see where the hammer is going to go. But the hammer essentially bounces off walls and things like that. The story is pretty decent, nothing super crazy. You're a young Thor. You need the hammer to go through the forest to vanquish enemies, and you're trying to make it back, I think, in time for your birthday. And more than anything else, which you're not going to see, obviously, because there's no screenshots of the game. You can always check out the gameplay. But the game, inside the game, is as vibrant as you see this cover art here. The thing that drew me to this game was actually the beautiful pixel graphics in this game. Beautiful pixel art. Just the backgrounds are colorful, they're vibrant, they're lush. And I'm just a sucker for games like this. So Tiny Thor, in essence, is a really cool game. Now, this was put out by Strictly Limited, and I've talked about Strictly Limited in the past when it comes to some of my Switch pickups. Now, this is release number 92 for Strictly Limited, and there are only 4,000 copies of this game that have been made. And this is where where a lot of folks, talk about that fabricated FOMO, right? This is what companies do to kind of create kind of fake FOMO where, okay, there's only 4,000 copies. You need to get your copy before there's no more copies left. Now, I don't know if I've seen many Strictly Limited games get a reprint. We've definitely seen limited run games get a reprint. We've definitely seen limited run. We've definitely seen special reserve games get reprint. I mean, if you think back to like games like Ape Out, I remember when Ape Out first came out and the numbered copies were going for crazy money, but then it got a general reprint and prices dropped all the way down to 30 for Ape Out. And Ape Out is a decent game. But there are certain Strictly Limited games that I don't think we've ever gotten or seen a reprint for. My mind goes to games like Foxes and Forests, right? Foxes and Forests is one of the earlier Strictly Limited games. I don't know if we've ever gotten a reprint for that game, and that game is ridiculously expensive. The last time I checked, that game was like $200+. If I'm wrong and it's come down, let me know down in the comments. But you've got games like Foxes and Forests, which were really expensive. You've got Xenocrisis, which was ported to the Switch. That was going for crazy money. I mean, you've got a lot of Strictly Limited games that are pretty pricey. Not all of them are pricey, but some. Now, I don't know about M2. I don't know if many or if any M2 games have gotten a reprint, but we've definitely seen reprints happen for a limited run, for special reserve. Nicalis games tend to get releases through Video Games New York. Certain Nicalis games, not Nicalis, but Pixel Heart. Pixel Heart is another company that's based out of the UK. I think they're based out of the UK. And Pixel Heart has actually come out with some pretty cool games like Wallachia, Golden Force. There's been a number of games that have come out through Pixel Heart that I used to have in my collection. I no longer have them, but I do know that when it came to certain Pixel Heart games, you could either order them straight through Pixel Heart or Video Games New York. It's a game store here in New York, where you could buy games from there, or they have a website where you can order from their website as well. So, but you know, even Pixel Heart, they would get some reprints. I think Nicalis got some reprints, but you don't really see a lot of reprints from Strictly Limited. Now, if I'm wrong there, someone let me know. I haven't seen many. You can always let me know, but I went and checked out Tiny Thor just to see, you know, just for the heck of it, because I recently got also another Strictly Limited game, Jet Cave. So Jet Cave came not that long ago, and when I started to look online to see like, okay, and sometimes I check on eBay to see if I just got my copy late, and copies, you know, physical copies have been floating around for a while, or if these companies were just really late in sending me these copies. So when I first looked up Jet Cave, I didn't really see many copies or any copies, but I waited about another week after I had gotten my copy of Jet Cave, and when I looked on eBay, I saw people listing it for like $110. I was like, what? Why are people listing it for $110? Now, don't get me wrong, those prices have come down, and I've seen listings for like $69, $59, people kind of lowering those prices and coming back down to earth. But then when I went and looked at Tiny Thor, there's only one listing that I've seen so far for Tiny Thor. It's based out of Canada. They want $125 for Tiny Thor. And I'm like, what? Why? I just don't get why folks are trying to charge so much. Now, there's only 3,000 copies of Jet Cave, and there's only 4,000 copies of Tiny Thor. And this is where it kind of gets tricky when you want to collect indie titles for modern consoles like the Switch, the PlayStation 4, or the PlayStation 5, because the same way you can have crazy prices that come with retro games, right? You can still have crazy prices with some of these games. And what, you know, a lot of people, you know, I posted a video and someone had mentioned that there was a reprint coming out for a Switch game that I was talking about, and they said that the price was going to tank. That doesn't necessarily, that's not always the case. Look at Celeste. Celeste got its original print through limited run, and despite a general reprint being done for Celeste, those prices are still pretty high. I think it's like $90 for a first print copy of Celeste. The same thing happened with Blasphemous. We talked about Blasphemous on one of my other videos. Blasphemous first print, like 90 to $100. They came out with a reprint, and guess what? All the reprints for Blasphemous, the original Blasphemous, not Blasphemous 2, all of the reprints then shot up to $100. So I think it just depends from game to game, but I know that when it comes to these modern retro styled games, it's very tricky with the pricing. But overall, it just feels like people are just making these prices up. And I don't know, it's kind of weird. It really is kind of weird. Let me know what you guys think. Do you think that some of the prices being asked for some of these like indie Switch games are worth it? Or do you think people are just pulling prices like out of their hat? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments, and I'll catch you in the next video. It's the Y2K Collector. Take it easy.